Okay, so I gotta update the project from Git. Oh, this thing's empty. That might have killed Git. Oh, that's what happened. There we go. I'm gonna try to find it. Well, not find it. I have to reclone it right now. There we go. I cleared it. Get the project from scratch. Should pop up. There it is. All right. I'm gonna change the file location. Here. Oh no, let's not do that. Let's do instead. I don't want to have double layers. Delete this. Oh, wait a moment. Is that how the file directory is set up? There we go. That's exactly how I wanted it to be. While that's downloading, I look at my desktop. I'm gonna be moving another copy here when it's ready, because I don't like using the Git copy to work with. So anytime you see me work on a project, either at the meetings or now, I'll always copy it from Git before I mess with it. So that way I have something to fall back on in case I fuck something up. I'll close this since I won't need that anymore. Move this to the side because that's not relevant. What is this? Well, something else to delete from my computer when I find out what it is. Close TeamViewer. Okay, there might have been a gap on the stream. That is because of that download. I'm going to restart it real quick so that way there's something clean. And it's not hugely delayed. Actually, let me check the delay before I even bother. It should skip frames. Oh, that's not bad. That's actually pretty close. Never mind. What's it doing? Is it downloading at the same time? Oh, that would do it. How's that? That doesn't need to be updated. Good. Almost done. Okay, I should have a fully cloned copy that I now can reference. So if I click Go and Explorer, I can go directly to it. All I want is this. I'm gonna paste that here. What the fuck is that? Alright, what's running in the background while I'm waiting? That thing's done already? Oh, that was quicker than I thought. Okay, I'm gonna launch Unreal. I could open it straight from the project, but I want to do this a certain way, so it's Spring. Find out where the hell that came. Not the creator, that's been on here for months. I wouldn't be surprised if that's off, that's not. Yeah, I don't know. Go on display mirror. There we go. Go to Unreal. Documentation, if I can find some. Like that. Look at this. Basically, I already know I'm going to be dealing with multiplayer, which is related to networking in Unreal. So the first things I'm searching up on Google are the closest things to that, including some personal blogs if I can find some. How Photon is, because that sounds interesting. Blueprint networking is also amazing, because that's what we're going to be directly using is blueprints. We're trying to avoid C++ if at all possible. Although it's nice to reference to C++ sometimes, because you can also find some stuff about blueprints since they're both directly related to each other. Blueprints compile to C++ and C++ can compile to blueprints. And you can create custom functions in C++ for your blueprints if you want to. Okay. Important probably close. Like an older one, but still good to look at. Okay. Like a specific portion of this. Part of networking replication. That's going on here. Looks like a really good blog. They're using it in C++, but that's fine. I can read that. If you can't, that's okay. I can show you anything or ask me in chat. My mic working? Yeah, it is. Okay. Okay, so they want to implement this with networking, but I want to find out what it is. Huh. Okay, that's something to check out later. additional framework on top of what you would use on Unreal or adjunct to it. Okay, this is just basic tutorials. So I'll put this priority. Over as well. I like that WordPress so far. I'm not going to touch this right now, but I'm going to save it later. Good. Replication. I can specify blueprints and find. Oh, never mind. It's right there. And I'm just buffering this stuff for later. I'm not going to look at these documents now. I'm going to first look at our project I need to find. So I'm going to go look for that now. Desktop. There it is. I just wanted to do that so that the Unity engine knows it exists. I mean, Epic Games knows it exists. If you have any questions, ask them on the Discord. Controllers is dying. Oh damn! Hold on. I can charge that. While I'm doing stuff. Okay, the project loaded. Cool. No light render errors. I don't know what he was getting. I have to check out the HTML render when I get the chance. It takes a while to compile though, so I'm not going to bother right now. There it is. That's I'm using Shader Model 5 and everything maxed out, so I wouldn't see that error, but that doesn't matter right now. Everything's pretty much the same as what I remember. Got the stuff that comes with the Unreal Shootout project, which if you want to do a raw project by any chance, all you have to do is go to the Learn tab on Unreal Engine, scroll down to the bottom, or not the bottom, but a little bit close to the bottom, about 3/4 of right there. Click on multiplayer shootout, and this is their general tutorial on ignore the Chinese, but pretty much the general tutorial on how to do a shootout, or a template at least. The desktop, this one, okay. So Matt basically got the VR menu and VR server from this stuff over here. Assuming it's either the main menu. Okay, yeah, this thing. I don't know if he implemented that. I think he didn't bother. Definitely use this thing. That's this. We just adjusted to be with the VR, I believe. Yeah. And probably change server list. Yep, that's the one. So essentially both of those can be interacted with now in VR properly. Difference, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Remove the black backgrounds. Changed a bunch of their parameters so that they would work well with VR, their sizing and stuff like that. Compared to the original. Or not, no, never mind. No, it's completely different. The 3D space now. Not even using the original canvas. Is that a blueprint on it? Okay, you converted it to a blueprint. And the blueprint, I'm guessing, has the widget. Yep. Okay. Pass-through mask. So for those who don't know, blueprints are essentially a class or header, more like a header from C++ in my opinion, as they contain all the general stuff while also having reference to the implementation. So you don't really have this in Java, but like in C++, you have the CPP file where you implement things. So instead of doing it in the header just names stuff. So like you would define an int, something, name it in whatever you want, the header, say it exists. And in CPP, you'll say what number the integer is. Same thing with functions. Function does. I guess the closest thing you can think of is as if it was an interface, but instead of it being the interface being it's like it's something part of a class, it would be its own class, and it would be something that defines the class. That's the closest thing to Java I can think of. I'm about to test the project in a moment. So basically, blueprints can have a bunch of stuff to define. I think the most basic blueprint you can have is an actor. Double check. Yeah, actor is the base object you can spawn with. You can have something more empty than actor, I think, if you do CPP. But if you do, I don't know what you're going to do, because in order to interact with I'm pretty sure the Unreal Engine properly, you should just make it an actor, even the CPP file. Not that we're going to even touch CPP. Okay, so this is the animation blueprint. I'm going to just... Are we even using... So, let me just go straight to this folder. That's where we put everything. So you'll see references to the third-person blueprint because we grabbed a bunch of stuff from them. And we also grabbed stuff from... You have the general content, which is for the gunslingers, like part of this specific thing. And then we migrated files, so the third-person files and some other stuff that may be randomly in here, like the starter content, would be from another Unreal project. So you can also, so for example, if I go to launch and I go to a new project, you'll see a bunch of template files. I mean, template options for when you start the project. That will come with base files and a base level and some base codes in the blueprint. Those are essentially pre-made stuff from Unreal to just help you get started with projects, especially if you haven't done one before. And you can migrate those files between projects using, I'm pretty sure you can't do it from here, but if you're in, yeah, on here, if you go to this, for example, and I go to meshes, show this now, I don't think you can do it this way, but if you select goal, yeah, you can select a folder, for example, you can do migrate, and you can do, you can save, yeah, save, it'll ask you to save it before you do it, and then it'll tell you, ask you where, it'll confirm which are going to be migrating to, so it tells you everything that's inside this folder, so it's going to be meshes, all the stuff inside meshes, and lets you pick which project to do it in. So it's looking for one of these, which is a content folder, but for the different projects. So, for example, if it was a sword mechanic, which is a different project, I'll go to content and I'll just dump it in here. Preferably, I would like to do it in my own custom folder called imported, but that can usually break the content if it's not like, if it's like a blueprint or something. Usually, you only want to do that with raw stuff like meshes that won't break its links of where it's located from the content directory directly. If it's a mesh, it doesn't give a shit. It's just a mesh. It doesn't have any linking to any other file on the project. Now, as for the Z folder, that's what we named our custom content for the thing, with the exception of that widget that was somewhere else, I think. Here's the third person. Where is it? Third person's right here. And here's virtual reality blueprint, which will help you out. And there's a bunch of other ones you can use. Not blueprint, template for a project. They also offer them in C++, although this one has more options than C++ one. I'll close that, don't bother with that. So this is the VR character, which I got to refactor and clean up, which I don't think I have time for tonight because I'm going to be looking at just networking, period. But I probably can do this Friday or the weekend, depends on how much time I have. Hopefully I can do it at work, but work has been really stiffy with the boss, so I don't know if I can do that. Piece widget action. Interaction beam. So this code is all for interaction with the server menu, which I can show in a moment. Actually, press play. See if I can not even join anything, but just see if I can press play and see what's going on here. It's probably the same as when I last used it, but just better done. Maybe the the IK works better. If not, I can add a few things, because last time I checked, the multiplayer project doesn't have what our sword project has, which is better orientation to the HMD, which is the head-mounted display they use for VR. I'm pretty sure the body just stays in one place if it even is there. I'm not seeing it. Oh, there it is. So yeah, as you can see, the body's just staying there. I'm above it because it's orientation screw up. I have to calibrate it from the current position in my area, which I'm about to do in a moment. I just need to grab my controllers and I'll go straight in. You should have enough charge right now, so that I can just use them as a basic way. Without them dying on me. Okay. If I grab them, the basic IK without orientation should work. It does. And if I press the left buttons, they're not working. I might have to reset Unreal. Yeah, that glitch is happening. No buttons are working except for Steam. Yep. Hold on. When this happens, you gotta restart Steam and Unreal. It happens usually during the first launch. It's kind of like an unavoidable glitch. Thankfully, since I've already launched it once, it won't be hard to do it again. Okay, so it's launching again. Hold on. I have to wait for Steam to. I have to make sure Steam VR starts up first, completely. Go. Okay, that's there now. Controllers are on. They are. That's it. Start up the project again. I didn't do room setup, but I'm not too worried about it since I'm mostly going to be staying in place. So it still should have the room setup from Mango Hacks. Unless it knows what my room is, and I think it does. That's like the weird part. It's starting to recognize where I am. I don't know if the lighthouses are the one. Is it because it knows it's a different lighthouse or not? Or it knows where the room is. I would hope it would be the lighthouses, because that would be insane if it knows it purely because of... Yeah, that's exactly my room. Wow. Okay. Door. Alright, that's running. Try diving in again. One of them's not... Come on, there we go. I reset orientation, I got control of my arms, and now I gotta figure out which is the menu button. Yeah, that's my room. Probably going to the lighthouse. Yeah, nothing's popping up. I'm probably in the wrong level too. I would not be surprised. Hold on. At least I know VR works for the most part. See if it's this one. You can set, I'm going to show you how to do it. You can also set what level your project starts with at load. Okay. There it is. So you can see the menu's working. What I have, I'm going to reset orientation. I might spend some time during the stream giving this this character orientation so the body follows me if it can. I don't know. Where is it? There it is. So finding games works, and it'll try to search for something, but it won't find anything unless Matt is scoping the stream and it decides to do something there. LAN mode is if you want to do it in a local network, which for some reason doesn't really work that well. Don't know why. If I go to play, it makes me host my own server. So now we're in that regular level that I probably was in. And from what Matt said, he was able to see the other person there, but the hands were for some reason like this or like something like that. And they wouldn't move. Sorry about the mic. Got tangled with the VR headset. There we go. Okay, so that was a good test. Corrupt PNG errors? I'm not too sure. You're gonna have to ask Hazer about that. Hold on. Okay. I answered them. Anything else I was going to look at? I was going to look at the VR character. This was done. VR animation blueprint. So I'm going to show you how the basic. I'm just going to go over like really quick how the IK works. We make sure the pond owner is valid. Blah blah blah. Goes it's in air. Make sure it's not in air. Or sets in air if it's in air. And it sets the speed based. Sets the speed afterwards. And what it's basically getting is the motion controller's transforms, which is their positioning and rotate, which is positioning, rotation, scaling, Scaling is really not touched. It's mostly position and rotation. And then from there, we use built-in functions. So this fabric, which is the built-in IK or inverse kinematics that Unreal uses, which lets it predict where the rest of the arm would be based on the position you specify, or just like any bone really. So we're having it from the tip bone, which is the hand. I'm going to show in a moment what that is, and the clavicle, which is, I'm pretty sure, the shoulder. So if I go to hand, that's the tip bone, that's where it starts. And it goes all, where's the clavicle? There's the clavicle. So yeah, like it's the center of the body ish. Goes all the way to there, but this for the left hand would be all the way over here, so all the way there to there. And then we modify the bone to make sure it looks okay, not here, but in VR. Final animation pose, which is basically just sending the animation data that it generated with these things to the final pose that this character will have. This is his idle animation. I guess it moves while it's not doing anything. I don't know. Oh, okay, he's got pretty much everything. You got the main menu, the main server list, server row, all done in VR. Okay, this time he's not, I guess he references the blueprint. The blueprint, there it is. So the other stuff was probably older. The actual setup of it. Yep, that looks more accurate to what it would have been like. Sorry, amendment. So using the pass-through, set the resolution to okay, good size. It's good enough for VR. You don't want to make it too big because that'll kill your performance. This one you can actually see it. 500 by 500 the default. If you make it a high resolution, the closer you get, the nicer it would look, nicer refined it would look. Based on how good the native setup of the original widget is. You can find here. And this is pure text-based stuff, which I think it is. This would be a vector, so this can get as nice as you want it to be. As for this thing, is this also a vector? Yep. That can also get as good as you want it to. So that specific loading frame would, doesn't matter how high you set the resolution, it's looking better. That over, not downloading, is it? That. Alright, now that I looked over the project, I was going to show you how to change the default level. What settings? Where's that project settings? I forgot. There it is, maps and molds. Yeah. I can change this to, that's the white one, yep. Editor startup map. Now they're both the same thing that they're supposed to be. You know, that's all. Then I'm gonna keep this open because I want to reference it for later, plus I need to migrate things to that. If actually, let me just migrate it now. I think this has it. Yeah, I'm gonna open the desktop version. I'm quickly gonna get some orientation stuff from the this blueprint over here. Maybe I can copy and paste between two different Unreal engines. I don't know. We'll see right now. That would be a learning experience for me because I have no idea if you can actually do a copy and paste from one blueprint to another on a different project. You can? Oh, that's awesome. Now you have to migrate. Okay, so go to player. Be able to find the VR character. I forgot that he has the orient. Yeah, I think this one has the orientation. Yeah, orient body to HMD. That's it. Now I don't have to do all this crap over again. I can make this function again, and I'll do it real quick so that way you have a reference of how you make functions Unreal Engine, and you start getting some experience with it. If you haven't done any tutorials for Unreal Engine, or if you haven't tried to do any blueprints, you just gotta do it yourself, because if you look at someone do it, you're not gonna learn it for sure. Stuff is just as hard as regular programming. Well, it's easier to the extent you don't have to memorize syntax, because right click and you get every single function you possibly can do for the most part. So I'm going to copy all this. It's all copied. Bring out the other project. Go to character, your character, and make the new function. Orient body to HMD. It automatically spaces out based on the camel case. Nice. You don't have to do that though, you can just space it out yourself, but doing it out of habit. And that is awesome. Oh, it even kept the return node. I don't have to do shit. All I have to do is change these references, because if I compile it, it should break. Yeah, it doesn't know what the hell this is. So I have to find out what the equivalent of limbs are. Originally, they were pretty much a scene thing, so like a VR origin scene component that just held a bunch of stuff. We don't have that now. It's part of the mesh itself that we're referencing. Thankfully, this was a general location that we were using to figure out the location of everything else. The only problem is it might need a, unlike the hands, this one actually might need a manual offset. I don't know, I'm not going to mess with that if it does. We'll just test it and see if it even does. I'm just going to get the mesh relative location. Everything should work just as before. I need to get a calculated limb location again, so that was a custom variable, so I'll just make it again. If you want to change a variable from Boolean to something else, red means Boolean, green means float. You can just go here and find it, or you can change it here. And they have pretty much every object you would want to bother with. And if you need a custom one, I don't know that process because I haven't bothered with that yet. And I'm just going to change it to the exact name as that. And it may compile or may not compile. I forgot if I spaced that. I did, so that's not going to work. So I'm going to move that there. Oh, no, I just said it. You can either drag or drop, or you can reference it. As long as you don't spell it wrong. Right there. This is a reroute node. It's just used for organization. You can also split off and make multiple. If the logic allows it, you can have multiple to that one node. From that one node. I think I use them here. Yeah, so I can use them here, for example. That was a really bad idea. Why did it go there? I don't know. That there, rerouting to here. You get the location of the camera, put that there. And where is it referencing to? 3. So I need to reroute this. You see I can have 2 now from this reroute node. Do that because the logic allows it. Get rid of that. This goes this. This got over there for some. Delete this so I get less confused. Why did this become a mess? Fixing all this stuff real quick. So I'm going to replace this since I referenced that originally was the lens. Was also, I'm just going to over here. And these gets are basically like trying to, this is a function as well. And you're pretty much putting in the parameters for the function. Target parameter, and there's some optional ones, just like in any other language. Major object oriented language, you have optional options you can put in. So I'm making the target that mesh. Just going to changing the local offset if I require it to. As you can see, I don't have anything set to this thing. Normally, I probably would have used either this thing to do it, or I would move this over to that and it would do the out offset, but I'm currently not messing with it for now. I didn't need to because this was working just fine as it is without using add local offset. I think I actually deleted it at one point, but then the push one that we had override that changed and it kept this old version, which is fine. It still works perfectly. The new version was just a tiny refactor. Okay, so now I have this function and I can add it to the event graph so that it actually gets implemented. Well, I have to add it to the one of these. So that's event tick, so that happens every frame. And if I get event begin, it'll give me the one that happens at the very beginning when it's constructed. Blueprint into an actual object. And look at the other one where I can see where the heck I put it. Phantom map, yeah. I didn't make all these edits in the phantom map, right? No. So I did add event tick. I did it at the very end before I started doing the teleport rotation stuff. That I did all the physics and things. So I'll do it after whatever we have the other projects. I'm gonna close this. I don't need this anymore. I'm gonna compress this stuff. So you see all this jumble of code that I don't want to deal with. You can do something with that. So before I do that, you can refactor that. You can do all kinds of things to make this easier to read. But I'm going to show you one of the most easiest and basic ways to get things done so that even if you're trying to speed run code, you can still compress the basic area without doing much work. So I'm just going to use orient to body to HMD here. And it calls that function with everything inside, and at the end it does the return node. I manually put this. You don't have to put this. You can delete this, and it will return automatically. But it's more of like a visual aid to make sure like you realize, okay, this is definitely where it's exiting. All right, so you don't have return nodes though in event graph because this is the actual class file where you implement things. So there's no such thing as that. It's just gets everything done, and at the very end it stops. So now that I have that thing there, I'm going to highlight everything I want to do what's called a compression. And all compression does is it puts it into not a function node, not a macro node, but just a collapse node. That's all I can think of calling it. You collapse all those nodes into a single collapse graph. That's what they call it. Put it right there. Move it here. It doesn't break anything. And look at it, and all the code's intact in here. It even keeps the little comment thing, so you can know exactly what the hell this is doing. And if you want to look back at it later and see what's going on, you just go into here, or you can just zoom out, and you're back to where all this logic was. You can call it something. So what was this thing? Show interaction beam. I'm going to copy that. Press F2 to rename. Show interaction beam. Wow, it should work. And I'll test it out real quick before I leave and go on to the next stuff, which is just seeing how the hell networking works. So hold on while I go into VR. And like I said before, it looks like he'll need to be offset a bit or he's not completely following me, but that's fine. I expected that since I'm not doing it the same way I used to. And probably his actual look, I'll show you where it's best to edit it from. It's best not to, so it's doing some basic following. It still stays in one place. For some reason, its transform is locked to that position, but its rotation is more dynamic and it's following my hand movements more. So if I do that, you can see it maybe through the display mirror. I don't know how much viewing area you have on there, but you can see it's through the display mirror when I go on the Steam menu that it is following the controllers rotationally and can extend certain positions with the arms, but the mesh itself isn't. The base mesh location is. I'll figure that out later, but it's an improvement. I don't recommend doing this though because I don't recommend using this if you get motion sick because I can see this fucking up somebody. Anyways, it just looks weird when your body's not perfect. Everything else works fine. I forgot how to use this. I don't even remember if the reset worked. Play's not working. It's not working. I'm hoping that this glitch didn't happen again because I forgot if I reoriented properly or not. But yeah, if you see like an offset error or like just not being right, you should always look at the mesh first. And everything here looks great. No problem. Maybe the zero over here. Wrong. Okay, that's fine. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm not referencing. Here, I'll just look at this a little bit more. What am I referencing? Possibly wants the VR origin instead. No. Definitely wants. Which I'm pretty sure that's the same exact thing. It's not that. Why didn't that move? Okay. Temp changes his height. Reason to change that. Not modifying its transform though. It has the capsule component. For this thing. Well, I should let it move after it. I'll have to see later. Okay. For now, that's good enough. I'm going to turn off, in case I do push this, which I probably will. GitHub. Turn this off. Everybody's head up when they are. That's not ready to be regular testing yet. I'll save that for now. I'm gonna see if I can do some basic networking with VR with Unreal just to see how the heck this works properly. I might reference the base project, I might not, depends on how these tutorials and documentation. I'll launch this because I might be just making a brand new project. I'm gonna be starting with this tutorial. Part 1 is the basics that they have here. You can't hear anything because it's all in VR. Here it all puts my speakers as well.
working, specifically making multiplayer games work through blueprints. Networking is a pretty complicated topic, so we'll try to break this into multiple pieces just so we can get the gist of it. This tutorial assumes a decent knowledge of blueprint basics, but no networking knowledge whatsoever. That said, it's actually really important to understand.
Hey, what are they using on this project?
So before we actually go ahead and dive into the blueprints, I prepared a very
using a base project.
I prepared a very quick little PowerPoint to go over some basics of networking. Now I know what you're saying. This is totally not what I signed up for. PowerPoint is not what I wanted to be looking at. But if you bear with me, it'll be really quick, and we'll get some basics under control. So the first thing to understand with Unreal's networking and blueprints and in code is that the games will run on what is called a client-server model. And that means basically if you have a server machine who is serving as the host of the game, and it's allowing potentially multiple clients to connect to it and communicate data with it back and forth. The thing you want to notice here is that the communication between the client and server is happening such that the client sends data to the server.
Okay, so that's just basic information on how it works. It's just using the client-server model. That's pretty much what every game uses nowadays.
That allow them to be cheaper, obviously, because they're not rendering anything. And some games will also even make the executable for the dedicated server an entirely separate executable that only contains special logic that it knows to also help prevent against cheating. For the sake of these tutorials, to be cheaper, obviously, because they're not rendering it.
So basically, any competitive game, like for example, Overwatch, would definitely do that.
We make sure to make the executable how we handle when he takes damage and then send it to the other clients, and now he's sad and he's lost health. We would call this.
So that's replication. So that's maybe something we're screwing up with the VR character with the IK. I'm not sure. That later.
Replicating the health value. The server itself has handled the change. It's made sure that the change is legitimate.
So it's just a settlement layer to make sure that, let's say it's, if you know blockchain, it's the same thing that blockchain does, and make sure that its copy that it's getting from this thing is legit. So check with the other ones, and see which ones it thinks is legit, or the one it should take.
They can see what the value is, and if they want to display a health bar, things like that. So whenever we say replication, or whenever we're talking about that, we're effectively meaning the transmission of different data and commands between these machines and how as well. Allow you to test multiplayer really quickly. So you can go here, number of clients, and you can change this.
Yeah. So when you have the project, this is done already for our project. I should keep this open. I'll open it. We already have this set up. So under the play option, you have the chance to set up number of clients to 2. Well, we turned this off because we were actually trying to do it between different desktops. You can do this on a client that's not using the VR, for example, just a basic shootout if you like, with somebody else in the group, or me, it doesn't matter. I can just set it up real quick and we can test it. And you can not run a dedicated server, but just run. You can change the number of clients if you're doing it by yourself, or you can just one client and then have someone else run the other client, and you can try connecting using the Find Games option.
Doing some multiplayer stuff here. So you'll play it, you'll press play, and you'll get your window here. For the purposes of this demonstration, I also actually went into advanced settings and changed the default window size and all that stuff so that we can have multiple windows easily on the screen. But if you want to try multiplayer, you go here, you change this to 2, and then when we run it, you'll see.
Yep, there it is. And now he's got 2 players in here because he's already got this set up properly.
At the top,
wherever this is, I have no idea.
And this one says preview client.
What project this is, but it looks way better than the shootout, in my opinion.
That won't happen by default when you're just.
I actually really want this project. Okay, this. Maybe had it. Okay, I'm pretty sure this is already done. I'm gonna double check. Where is this crap? Oh. Okay, movement replicates is on. Yeah. Yep, they're saying it again here. This is also a really nice text-based version. I'm gonna post this. I don't know if we have it. Let me go scroll through everything we have so far. HTML stuff. Blueprint multiplayer shootout game tutorial. Live training is there. It was a good tutorial, but this already looks better to me. Yeah, I don't see it. I'm gonna just post it. Post this as well. I'm on this video. I'll post this just in case. I don't think this is good enough yet. Just general stuff you can look up, so I won't post that. Is this the same thing? No. The replication live training. Okay, this is more technical, so I'll look at this later. Back to this. Okay, so this is if you want like the hit check on the hat or the player when you're doing the shootout. You want to make sure only the server handles the overlap. Make sure that it doesn't that logic's not handled remotely to make sure it's confirmed hit only on the server, not locally. You don't want that action to take place on the network on the local server in case so that the player doesn't see something it's not supposed to see that's conflicting with the server thinks is going to happen instead. That's just a confirmation. Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty sure this is how it works, but Unreal Engine already has its own, like, when you run even a local game, a single player game, it's running you on a local host server. That's where the client runs. And if you try doing multiplayer, even if you say, so yeah, like right here, and then if you do local multiplayer or just like online, it will make the dedicated server the listen server. And the listen server, all the listen server is that it's basically like when you do player-to-player games like in Warframe. Warframe only has one dedicated server type, and that's just to hold all player information. When you host a game and you get other people to join you, they're using your server or whoever's thought was the best ping for everybody as the listen host. So that's the person who's actually checking all the data logic and making sure. So like that's why they say those games are really broken. Like if you tried playing Guns 2 when it came out, it was really fucked up if you were the host because you basically had the best connection. You had zero lag. So whatever shot you made, that's the one that counted the most. It had highest priority because it had the lowest ping. So that's exactly how this would work for, which is basically fine for casual games or strategy turn-based games because lag doesn't matter. So you can put like number of players to not run on a dedicated server, use one of the players as a listen server, and you don't have to worry about a dedicated server running in the background. A dedicated server is the better option, but doesn't really make a difference if you're on the same local network as one of the persons playing. This is essentially the same thing as using a listen server, but just like it just handles in a separate computer. Maybe that would be like the benefit, unless it's handled on some offsite location. Going back down. Did I finish this? Yeah. I'll go back to the video. That was their crash course on it. I still don't see where the heck they got that project from.
Very quick little PowerPoint to go over some basics of networking. Now I know what you're saying. This is totally not what I signed up for. PowerPoint is not what I wanted to be looking at. But if you bear with me, it'll be really quick. And
is it under starter content maybe? Because that looks like a starter content type of deal.
Control.
This looks like it. It's not downloading any. Okay, so might fuck up a little bit of the stream. Shot this. Okay, that should help with. Not really. Okay, it's half done. The stream has plenty of time left. I'm gonna keep going until 11:30. Probably once I figure out how exactly networking works. I'm not gonna try to really make a main menu that much. I'm just gonna try to do two host local clients without using VR, just seeing the move around if I can make a move around. And then go back to the real project because I pretty much got what I wanted done. And maybe if I have time left over, I'll spend the rest of the night refactoring so I can show you how I like to group things in Unreal and how I like to set up the blueprints and stuff. I won't be reorganizing that much content though. Refactoring usually tends to break things, so I don't want to break things right now. I really just want to make them organized. So if I do refactor, it's not going to be the kind of crazy stuff I was doing before with the Mango Hacks project, for example. If you can even, I don't even know how well the stream's playing right now because the download's so bad. Okay, it's pretty much done downloading, so the internet should, stream quality should bounce back now. Meanwhile, while I'm waiting, look at this.
When you're just making a level. But this situation has this window on the left in the position of a listen server. So he's acting as a server, and as you can see, I'm still providing input, I'm still moving around, and I'm playing. And then this window is the client. If you wanted to emulate a dedicated server, you actually can do that through here too. You go back to your dropdown, there's a checkbox that says Run Dedicated Server. And then you can actually, if you want, change this down to one client. And what you'll see happens is when you play it, the window that pops up, even though there's only one, it says it is a client because it's connected to a dedicated server emulating in the background. So this is still the equivalent of like being a client, but now you're connected to a dedicated server with, it's not rendering anything, it's not handling a player locally playing on it. Okay? Now, aside from inside the editor, and we'll just uncheck this to be ready for future demonstration. Aside from in the editor, like if you wanted to play the game, quote unquote, for real, outside of the editor using the executable, there's a lot of ways you can do that. You can do it with commands on the console, you can do it with shortcuts. For me, if I know I'm going to be trying multiplayer stuff or like working on multiplayer stuff for a while, I like to actually make shortcuts. So here we have two different shortcuts I've made to the UE4 editor, one for client and one for server. And if I open them up, it's going to be really tiny. So I'll just show you in Notepad what this looks like. Effectively, for the server, you want to put on in the target box right here. Let's see. So server, when you open up your shortcut and
you
have target, you want to append at the end the name of your project, the map you'd like to open, a question mark, which is the way that you can specify it.
Save this for later. It's a good reference. Want to have two different shortcuts.
Like effectively for the server, you want to put on in the target box right here. Let's see. So server, when you open up your shortcut and you have target, you want to append at the end the name of your project, the map you'd like to open, a question mark, which is the way that you can specify additional options to a map. And in this case, you put listen, meaning
so it's just server. It's just client. And
then we include
command line arguments.
We would like to run
after the question mark.
So if we go ahead and double click that guy, he will start loading up as a server. And then if the shortcut for the client is very similar, if we go back and look, except for we're putting the project name and then the IP address we would like to connect to. In this case, it's 127.0.0.1. If you're not familiar, this in networking terms is basically called localhost. It effectively means you would like to connect to yourself.
This is if you're just going straight to it instead of a menu
if we go to our
and searching for the server.
That would like to connect to localhost. We should see that he shows up in this map in a couple seconds when it loads.
You want to do it outside of the project.
And there he is. So here he is. He sees the server over in the dark. And that's how you would do it with the game executable instead of.
This would be good for VR demos,
options for
making it easy.
You could also, if you were already in a game or if you already had the game open, you can do this on the command line.
When we're using a listen server for the shootout,
like this was network features,
perfectly fine for LAN.
So on and so forth. That would open the map as a listen server.
If it works.
So we're gonna pause here as part one. Quick intro into basics on networking and how to actually connect to a game. And in part two, we'll go ahead and dive into the blueprints in this test map and start taking a look at how you can set your blueprints up for networking.
Okay, ignore that video. To the next part, factor and variable that replicate. Before I go into this, I wonder if he gives out his project file here or not. See, doesn't matter because I'm going to get that created one now. Unless it already did, hold on. It did, nice. I'll open this up, see what it looks like. It looks exactly the same as what was in the video, at least which portion of the maps were like it. Screenshots. Loading. Okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of the Blueprint networking tutorial. If you recall, in the first part, we went over some very simple networking basics, as well as showed how to go ahead and get into a multiplayer game in the editor and in the game executable proper. From now, we're going to actually branch into taking a look at the blueprints and what you need to do to set your content up to work properly in multiplayer games. So, if you recall in the first part, we talked about replication being the transmission of commands and data back and forth between the different machines, and in particular that there were different levels of replication available. So we're going to start with the simplest one, that being actor replication. And actor replication is basically, if an actor replicates, when it's spawned on the server, that means it will be sent to all of the clients, all the remote machines, and they will be aware of that actor's existence. However, if an actor does not
replicates the data,
then the remote machines won't actually know about it when it spawns. So a very simple example in this kiosk when we played
copy and paste data to the other ones and override the ones that's on the local server.
An actor on the left says no actor replication.
Because it has supreme
he sees them both because
decision in where they actually are,
look at the client,
or where the data
actually
is.
Does not see the one on the left, even though they're in the same game. They're both right next to each other, because the actor on the left was not marked for replication. It is not handled networking correctly. So how do we go about fixing that? Well,
only the local server can see it.
Easy, especially in blueprints. It is a simple property that you have to check for any.
Now is the check mark in the area over here with the details plane.
For these guys. So, opened on the wrong screen. Here we go. If you go to the defaults, you'll notice there is a replication section. Here is the one that did not replicate.
Where was this?
Go to the defaults.
Just the ghost.
Section. Here is the one that did not replicate, and it simply just doesn't have this checkbox.
You don't fully open it up.
And then if we go look at the one that does, as you might expect, he does have that checkbox checked. So anytime you want to spawn an actor that will then handle networking correctly and be networked to all the machines that connect to the game, you want to make sure that you go ahead and check this checkbox. This will basically ensure that this actor will replicate to all the machines that join. There are more complex scenarios that can come up where sometimes things will only replicate to the person who owns them and so on and so forth. But for the most case, you don't really need to worry about that. 99% of the time, what you want is just this replication to everybody, which all you need is that little checkbox. Okay. Now, these were actually spawned in the blueprint. If we go ahead and open it up.
Oh, it's taking a while.
Right here with these two spawns at the spawn points. And there's this interesting little note.
So he's using the switch authority here. Spawning the first one, which is no replication. Getting the transform of that spawn point on the map, the content example map.
Here about authority, which is what we're going to get
into. For each one.
The next
they don't spawn out
basically what you want
nowhere.
To do is make sure that
well, they need to transform no matter what, but I don't know if they use the default. I don't know if I forgot the default transform is just the map origin.
So we have another ghost
if you don't put one, or if it just forces you to put one by saying an error.
The same node, which is called switch has authority. So what this is basically checking is the blueprint script that's executing right now executing on a machine that is the network authority, or is it a remote machine? Now, most use cases, when you say authority, it's going to mean the server. So this is basically, am I the server or am I a client? The reason it doesn't just say authority or client, or excuse me, server or client, is because there are certain scenarios in which the server is not actually the authority over an actor. So it's an important distinction that is a little tricky at first, that the authority over an object is not necessarily the server. And a very good example of this, which will hopefully make sense, is if you were making a UI and you had an actor that was your client, then
your UI, you don't want that.
Client, and the server completely doesn't even care that it exists. In that case, the client has authority over the HUD because he owns it, he spawned it, and nobody else knows about it, and nobody cares.
Rendering as well.
Almost every other scenario, the authority
pretty much everything you do render-wise will be handled by the local. There's no reason for that to be done on the server.
Or vice versa. So let's go ahead before we go further into the blueprint script on this little boat and see what he accomplishes. So if we look on our server, we see he says network authority over his head, and he is orange. However, if we look at our client, he says remote client, and he is purple. So how did this work? Well, it's basically using that little node that we just talked about.
I really want to check out this map, but it still hasn't loaded yet. Bros. It hasn't changed percent this entire time, too. Hold on. See if it's even responding. Doing something in the background, is just not much. See which one I crashed. That was the other one. Crashed off. See if I can just run this thing. Put Steam VR in case it's messing with.
If we go ahead and open it up, you see here's the switch, has authority, so the server code will execute coming out of this branch, and we just set the text to say network authority. Remote is what all the clients will see. We'll go down, we made it say remote client, and then we've changed the color on his material to a lovely shade of blue and purple. And it's as simple as that. It's a nice, easy way to detect and do things differently on server or client if you need to. The most common use case, and where you will see this node very often, is when you are doing something that is very gameplay important. So if we go all the way back to the shooter example again, when a player is taking damage or we're doing something that directly impacts how the game functions, that will usually be wrapped with one of these first, that is making sure that it's only the authority that executes the code. Okay? So now as we move on from there, we will move from the concept of actor replication to variable replication. So we already decided that we want to replicate the ghost. We want the ghost actor available to all of the client machines. However, it doesn't always make sense to replicate every single piece of information that's possibly on the ghost. There's a lot of information that maybe only the server needs to know about, or just other people completely don't care about. And so you want to be able to set whether certain variables on an actor are.
Keeps breaking at 45.
So let's go ahead and run this example, and we'll take a look. Then we'll take a look at the script next.
I have to re-download it or something. I don't know what's going on with it.
Health values being displayed over their head, and they're both decrementing. And so on the server, you'll notice they're both decrementing the same way, and it's fine. If we go on the client, the one over here marked variable replication is decrementing the same way it is on the server. The one over here marked no variable replication is just set to 0 and is never changing at all. And the reason that is because we didn't actually set up the health variable that's in this ghost to be handling to work on the network either.
If it has to re-download all the information.
We hadn't set up the ghost actor to work network-wise. Here we didn't set up the health variable. So how do we do that? Well, it's slightly more complicated than just replicating an actor, but thankfully not too much more. So we're going to click on this guy who is replicating, and we're going to take a look at his blueprint script.
Let's show up.
His event graph. Here's our friend, the authority node again. In this case, when we begin play, he's actually initializing the health to a value, 100, and he's setting up the timer that is decrementing the health on the thing. And so you'll notice all of this logic we make sure we only do on the server, because modifying somebody's health is something that is very important gameplay-wise, and we do not want to.
So basically, on the local version.
Okay, and then what we're doing here is like this is a little quick hacked up way to show that health value. We're not actually doing a real HUD. We're just setting the value of a text render component to however much health every tick. But this code is running on both the server and the client, so they're constantly updating the text over their head. Now, you'll notice that this is actually the only thing that is running on the client. Everything else is on the server. So how is the client getting the updated health value? Well, if we go over to our properties, when we made this variable health, there's also a little drop down here that says replication. And what we did is we went ahead and
the
non-replicated
ghost doesn't get it.
Replicated means whenever this value changes, make sure that all of the other machines become aware that it changed. The important thing about replicated variables is we say that they are always reliable. And that means if you change the value of a variable that is marked replicated, you can be guaranteed that it is going to eventually make it to the other machines. They will eventually know that you made that change. Now, the thing to also be aware of is that can be slowed by network traffic. It doesn't happen instantaneously, and if things are super bogged down and you're trying to replicate tons of things, right, it may take a little teeny bit. I mean, it's still very quick, but it's not an instantaneous action. The other important thing to know about variable replication, so if we go actually look at this timer, which is called update health, which is doing the decrement and is actually setting the health, anytime you change a value for a replicated variable, it will consider it for replication, but it won't detect multiple changes within one frame. So in here, say health was 100. If I changed health to like 80, and then I immediately pulled off of it, and then I set health back to 100 again, the client won't be aware that that ever happened. Because at the end of the frame, when it's considered for replication, it will say, well, I started at 100.
When it says frames, it really means the logical loop, which games tend to make the logic and render loop all one frame, when you really shouldn't, in a way, because that kind of screwed things up, but most games do, including major game engines like Unreal. When they say frames, they mean a full logic loop which may include a frame or may not include a frame, and a full render loop, which would be the actual physical frame being changed that you would see on the screen. So basically, at the end of the frame, what he's saying is the end of the logic portion of the frame, the end of the logic loop of the cycle that the Unreal Engine is working on, you cannot change the health value twice and expect it to get replicated. Second time, it's going to show the first one, or I think the last one. Let me see.
No change has occurred. I don't need to tell the client machines about that. So it's important to realize that if you're changing the same value multiple times in one frame, it won't be captured.
It won't be okay. It just won't capture one of them. The last change will be the same frame that's captured. Okay.
Last change that you make in the same frame will be captured.
Which makes perfect sense if you're trying to do multiple. If you're trying to modify it twice.
Modifying replicated variables on the client. You want the server to be the one that makes the change.
In one frame for physics and stuff, the same thing happens.
To make sure that the client gets the change. So in here, we would never directly set the health value on the client machine, only if it's authority guarded, because we don't want people to be able to cheat or get out of sync or so on and so forth. Okay. So I mean that's about it for this simple example. One other thing that is worth maybe calling out too while we're here, probably should have brought it up a little bit in the authority guard, is some functions in the editor will also give you hints about where and when they can be used. So as an example, if we look for
hold on before I go back to that.
In this case, when we begin play, we didn't set up the health variable, changing it all. And the reason that is because we didn't actually set up the health variable that's in this ghost to work on the network either. In the same way that in the previous example, we hadn't set up the ghost actor to work network-wise. Here we didn't set up. It's going to work if you call it on the server. So you can try to call it on the client, and this is going to do nothing. So it's kind of guarding you a little bit against yourself to make sure that you don't do bad things. But it's important to know that this iconography exists.
This was updated.
You know, hey, this code only can possibly execute on the server. This node is not going to do anything at all if I happen to call it on a client or so on and so forth. Likewise, there's actually another one that would not be available here. Let's look real quick.
Let me see if I can get one of these to work.
Another one that you may want to be aware of is this little icon right here with a little monitor and a lightning bolt. This effectively means anything called after this point you are promising is only going to happen is basically for cosmetic or visual effects. And so you're not going to do anything that's super important to gameplay or that should only happen on the server. So this one in particular is with the HUD, right? So this is drawing HUD elements. Whatever you do, you happen to do. The server doesn't really care about that stuff. If we were running a dedicated server environment, if you recall back from the previous examples where we had a listen server and a dedicated server, anything following this node on a dedicated server is straight up not executed as an optimization, because as it even says in the tool.
I'm wondering if the content example can use PR or if that's the one what's screwing up. I highly doubt it. I don't know how the content example project is. Check actually. That would really suck if it. Oh, this should work. Up to 4.18. I want to get on with things, so I hope I can get in there. I mean, if anything, I can test it out in our multiplayer project, all the stuff that I'm looking at right now. So it's not that big a deal, but it would be nice to just use what they already have. Still haven't checked out all this other stuff yet, but I'm pretty sure this is the best that we have for just getting it. Okay, there we go. Nice. Waiting for it to load still. It's still frozen. Oh, that's a lot of compiling. Project's massive. Let's go to maps. See what they got. Should be a bunch of them, yep. So this is not easy to read. You can always change the view of this. How? There we go. View options. List. Columns. There we go. Quantum name. Streaming levels.